wife the other day to buy cigars.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
And I did not give any instruction. I just wanted her to buy me some cigars. And I was just going to see what she came up with, you know. Sometimes you just want to see if they're paying attention. I just said, grab me 3. These are the 3 she got. Passed with flying colors. I'm not going to bury the headline. Oliva, Connecticut. 100%. La Roma de Cuba. I guess it's their Connecticut. It's not labeled. Yeah, it is on the back. Connecticut Robusto. And another La Roma de Cuba. Just the Robusto. She did good. She did good.
My wife would be fine. She would know now. I'm going with the birthday gift. The Monte Cristo Classic Series.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you were going to get those cigars that I sent you about. Starts with F.
I did not.
I'm never down there when it's open.
No, I was just real confused as to why you were like, man, I've never liked these cigars. Let's go get some.
It's not, I didn't have a great experience when I went in there either.
That's true.
So, like, that's a big thing for me. That's a big deal. Like, you got to have
cigar
like,
shop.
It's a cigar shop. It's supposed to be a good experience when you go in. Now, I've been told that it may have just been the day or the time I've gone in. So I'm going to give another chance and then
report back.
I'll report back. But 0 for 2 so far. 0 for 2 so far.
Yeah.
Oh, also fun fact, I learned my limit.
How many?
And how many cigars I can smoke in a weekend. 7. 7 is too many.
You found it.
Yeah. Well, last week, this would have been my 7th cigar on Monday night. And I woke up on Tuesday and my throat was killing me. And then I was like, oh, am I getting sick? Is it the allergies? No.
No, it's just you smoked 7 cigars.
So I didn't smoke it all. I smoked one this weekend. Do you like a tightly rolled cigar or loosely rolled cigar?
Like tightly.
Mm-hmm. Woo! Sorry to the Twitch folks. Nobody's there yet. Well, that I can tell. It's my fault. We're running a little late tonight. Had a baseball game, Little League baseball, and we're sitting tonight.
We're sitting.
It's because we're getting old.
Because we're getting old. We started standing for no apparent reason several podcasts ago. We started sitting. There was always the infamous couch episode as well.
That was not good. We won't do that again. Not in this setting anyways.
No. We could do a couch episode from like a cigar lounge.
I feel like that's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then we started standing some time ago, and we never sat back down.
So, this is not on the run sheet because it just happened like 2 hours ago.
I was going to say, are you going to turn the entire podcast to the Cooper flag becomes a Maverick?
So, I was going to change my shirt, but I couldn't find it. If he doesn't pick if he doesn't pick Cooper flag, I will never watch the Mavericks again. I'm already on.
Do you think there's any chance at all?
I mean, he could trade it. He could trade the pick away. Welcome, Twitch. I didn't know you were there. Couldn't see it. I would say that the chance is not 0. The percent chance of him turning away is not 0.
Yeah, and then he'll get, some 7th round player for their 1st round pick. Just like he did for Luka.
And there's nobody that I want on the open market right now that is better than him, in my opinion. There's nobody. Not a single person. Hey, We have 2 new viewers today on the Twitch.
2 new viewers, welcome. Getting started a little later than normal.
We did win. We had a great day. My son went 2 for 3.
2 for 3.
Yeah. The strikeout was not his fault.
It was coach pitch, right?
Coach pitch, yeah.
Coach
he
pitch,
fouled
right.
the ball off twice. And then he got a bad pitch in the dirt, but he had to swing.
From his dad?
No, I'm not the pitcher. I can't do it. I tried to pitch, but it's
You're hitting too many kids and they took it away from you?
There's that. But also I get too competitive, and like a version of me is like, ooh, do I strike them out? Oh, I'm not supposed to think that way. I'm too competitive. I can't do it. Then I get mad. It's not good to get mad at 8-year-old little kids.
No.
But the guy that pitches does a great job. He does a good job putting it across the plate as much as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, we're okay. I mean, this is our first year of coach pitch.
Okay.
So it's a little bit slower pace than normal, if you will. But I like it. I mean, they're improving every week.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we move up to select baseball or not. It's in the conversation.
We ended Saturday with a tie, which you can do in soccer. So
That's the worst rule in soccer, by the way.
yeah. Now, like of course in playoff or championship games, they won't. They'll go to penalty kicks, which is always exciting. But yeah, tie. So playoffs for that league start Saturday. Going against the 11 seed. 8 o'clock in the morning.
Having a hard time getting this lit.
Samesies.
Stars are 2-1.
Yeah. I did not watch the Sunday afternoon game. I watched game 1 and 2. Did not watch game 3.
We did. It was good. It was a good game. I felt like game 2, they definitely mailed it in the second half of the second period, and it was like, let's just get back home.
I kind of felt like as soon as they went down 2-0, they thought they were just going to lose the game, and so you didn't see a lot of effort after that. Like you say, sometimes they look slow on the ice. They just look slow on the ice.
I didn't feel like that happened one time yesterday.
No, it's I don't know, it's kind of odd. But good chances with Winterpeg.
Yeah, I did enjoy the USA chants in the AAC yesterday. That was nice.
Game 4 tomorrow, and then after that, back to Winnipeg, because hockey is 2-2-1-1-1, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So we got one, lost one in Winnipeg, first one in Dallas. We win again tomorrow. It's going to be feeling pretty good.
It's going to be tough to
I'm
get.
feeling good about it, though.
Do you prefer your team win at home or win
If
away?
you can, but I'll take it anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if they win at home tomorrow and we're up 3-1 on the series, and then they go back to Winnipeg, I don't want them to lose the game.
Yeah.
I want them to win. I've often thought it'd be fun because a lot of times they fly into Love Field, our little picture here of Kennedy landing at Love Field, but a lot of times the sports teams will land there instead of the big DFW, the big international airport. And I've always thought it'd be fun to be waiting for them when they come back. We have teams that come back and have won a championship. You see people waiting at Love Field up against the fence.
I don't think I would do that.
At like 2 in the morning.
That's too early. I mean, it kind of depends. When the Mavericks won in Miami, I was so elated that they won that I didn't care that they won there. Like, I was just so happy. Then when the Rangers won, they won it at Arizona, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I can't really say much because both of my teams have won it. And then the Cowboys are a neutral site anyways.
Always, yeah.
Hey, big pickup. You like that pickup?
I was thinking, and tell me if I'm way off base on this, because he's got some drama, right, that follows him.
Yep.
That's been his story. What if he is to the Cowboys what Kyrie Irving is to the Mavericks? Player came in with some drama, maybe a little locker room stuff going on, but for some reason it worked out here. I think he's a dang good wide receiver.
We're talking about George Pickens, by the way.
Yeah.
From the Steelers.
Yeah.
I don't know him well enough as well as I knew Kyrie. Like
Okay.
I was pretty good. I had a pretty good idea that Kyrie was going to work out here because the Dallas media for the Mavericks, the Stars, and the Rangers is not hard, right? They don't give them a hard time. They pretty much just let them do whatever they want for the most part. But the Cowboy media is not quite like that. So they're a little bit harder on them.
Yeah.
As far as the players go. Now, we're not New York or L.A. as far as the media goes.
No, I think the media is harder on the Cowboys here than they are on definitely the Jets or the Giants. We're not Philly. I would say Philly, the media is really hard.
And you're not Pittsburgh either.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh's not as nice. Is harsher than we are.
Yeah, so I think. But dadgum, did you see with Popovich's retirement, speaking of Steelers, that now Mike Tomlin's the longest tenured coach? Currently still, not ever, but currently still coaching.
That doesn't surprise me. Head coaches don't last very long anymore.
I mean, you got to think the guy before him was Bill Cowher. Think about how long ago that was. So
It feels like it was like 15, 20 years ago.
that's been a minute.
How long has it been?
I don't know. I didn't look it up. I just saw the headline. So
Well, back to your Irving comparison, they're definitely in win now mode, which is what we were with Irving. So the comparison is a good one, but I just don't know George Pickens as well as I knew Kyrie as a player, as a person. The problem with Kyrie was that, or it still is he's just an odd duck, and like people don't understand him.
yeah,
Like he's a flat earther and
right. Well,
wears feathers in his ears and stuff like that.
flat earther's pretty common in the NBA. Who's the leader in the Cowboys locker room?
Dak and Micah.
Are they though? I know they should be, but is Dak Prescott the leader in that locker room?
I mean, who else is it going to be?
That's what I mean. Is there one?
I mean, it could be CD.
I feel like Zach Martin was, and he's gone
He's
now.
gone.
Witten
I don't-
definitely was.
Yeah, for sure. Romo was.
For sure, yeah.
And, Dez to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I think it's got to be CD, it's got to be Dak, and it's got to be Micah.
It's got to be Dak. The other two, yes, they should be. But QB1 has to be the leader.
Yeah.
I just feel like, I don't know, the last couple of years, you don't really see that as much.
Yeah,
Maybe we're too close to it,
maybe.
you know. Maybe, and also
I'm jaded.
we're also pretty hard on Dak.
Yeah.
So that too.
But I just think, too, like, if you're getting paid that amount of money and you're the freaking quarterback for the Cowboys,
Yeah.
that comes with the territory.
It does.
Speaking of quarterbacks for the Cowboys, Romo trying out for the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
Did he make the cut, or how did he
I
shoot
don't know.
today?
But he was in our town today. That guy likes to golf.
Yeah.
It's crazy how his back can hold up.
Well, I mean, he's not getting, landed on by 400-pound men.
It's true.
That's part of
I just
it.
mean I didn't mean that as a job to him. That guy played with a lot of heart. Played hurt so many times. Like, I've got nothing bad to say against Romo and injuries, except whenever he got replaced by Dak, it was his time to go.
I thought he died on the field.
He wasn't coming back from that.
I thought he died on the field.
And everybody who thought he was, it's just wishful thinking.
When he got crunched up like an accordion,
Yeah.
I thought he may never walk again.
That's what I mean. And now he's out playing golf, and not just playing golf, but playing golf pro.
Yeah, highly
So
competitive.
that's what I mean. It's a good thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that I think that's let's see how it rolls.
Typical Cowboy fashion. I'm starting.
Don't say it. Don't you dare say it. Because
I'm not going to say it, but I'm cracking myself up. I can't even get the words out. I'm starting to feel a little optimistic. And I don't know why.
I mean, I
think
want to be.
We're just dumb Cowboy fans.
I want to be. I want to
I'm
be
not
optimistic.
Like the summer's here, workouts are happening, the draft happened. And I'm like, well, maybe we'll just see what old Shotty's got,
I mean, everything they've done, I have agreed with.
It was a good draft.
The good draft.
And now George Pickens, if he works out, like that's, I mean, him with CD, that's pretty awesome.
Do we have a backup quarterback? Who is that?
Oh yeah, we got some. Who we get?
Did we draft one?
No. Well, I'm gonna reserve my thoughts for when I actually, because I saw that.
The Twitch says Cowboys are back, baby. Yeah, I mean, I want to be.
Oh yeah, we got Joe Milton III.
Okay.
And there's Will Greer also, but
Okay. Well, I mean, whatever. That's going to be a key part of what we're doing, though. It's going to be.
he looks a lot like CeeDee Lamb. I just pulled up Joe Milton. Like he could be CeeDee's brother.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You see?
I don't know. The experiment with who was it that we just got that they just got rid of? Trey Lance.
Trey
That
Lance,
did not
yeah.
work.
Yeah.
I don't know. So this weekend we went to the Posty Jelly Roll concert.
Post and Jelly. I saw some clips.
It was fantastic.
I bet.
Now I don't remember if I talked about this on here.
Look like your seats are pretty good.
Our seats were good. But we paid a pretty penny for them.
Yeah.
I mean, they were expensive. It was worth it. The experience, gave my kid and my daughter and my wife and myself. I mean, I just love live music. It's only the third concert I've ever even been to.
Yeah.
And now I've seen Jelly Roll twice. So the third concert I've ever been to.
2/3 have been Jelly Roll.
2/3 of them been Jelly Roll. And then the other one was Chris Stapleton.
We haven't gone to a ton of, now this year is apparently turning into our concert year. We, in the past, have not gone to a lot of big, arena style concerts, but we find live music everywhere we can. Like we go to Vegas, we go to Austin, we've been to Nashville a few times, and that's our thing in Austin or Nashville or even Vegas. We'll walk around and try to find some live music. It's nobody famous, right? It's a bar, a restaurant, a club kind of thing, but we like live music. But we saw Maroon 5 last year. We're going to see Alanis this year. I'm taking my oldest.
Alanis Morissette?
Yeah, in October.
Okay.
Taking my oldest to see The Weeknd in a few months.
Who's playing with The Weeknd?
I don't know.
No.
I've never heard of him. I barely heard of The Weeknd.
But I was really shocked at how many people there thought this was going to be a country concert.
Oh, really?
Yes. My wife was telling me there's a lady in the bathroom who was just mad as a hornet.
Like, if you go to a Beyonce concert, do you expect that to be a country concert? Everybody's doing their country album. That doesn't mean
I don't know.
Their concert's going to be.
But he played a lot of old stuff. He played one country song. He played the Mexico song, Headed to Mexico. That was it. That was the only country song he
There's
really
some
played.
disappointed people in Texas.
Oh, for sure. But I would say it was like, so our section stood the whole time. It was about our age demographic and younger. And they stood and the bleachers were shaking. But the people behind us, they sat the whole time pretty much.
Yeah.
But on the floor, everybody was standing. But I will say it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the whole show, like even Sierra Farrell, who I had seen her and heard of her a couple times. I just looked her up because I knew she was going to be the opener. She was good. She brought out Joe Jonas, which was weird.
Okay. But he's a Texas guy.
Yeah.
So I like when they bring out the local.
Oh, the Twitch says he played I Had Some Help.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that is one. But it was definitely more of a rock rap concert than that. But Jelly Roll played all his current stuff, so that's kind of country. He didn't play any of his old rap stuff.
Sure.
Which I wish he would have. Actually, that's the stuff I like the best. But
we also went to a few weeks ago Alex Warren, who was somewhat of an unknown. He it was the opening day of his tour, his nationwide tour. And he said, literally 5 months ago, I was at Club Dada, which is a club in Dallas, and he said I couldn't sell 50 tickets. And when we were there, he packed out.
Where were y'all at?
Toyota Music Factory.
Okay.
Which is a pretty cool venue.
I've never been there.
It's
been there. I haven't been there.
Half of it's standing up in front of the stage, a big standing section, which is where we were at. And I thought, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this, but it was great. It was a fun time. And then they have some seats behind you, and then they have lawn seating behind that. Kind of like the other one in Dallas.
My wife wants to go to Zach Top and Dirks Bentley. It's at Dos Equis.
Alan Jackson's son.
Yeah.
I mean,
unquote.
They look just like him. Sings just like him.
Sings just like him, too. Did you see his AMC performance?
Mm-mm.
So he got the Alan Jackson Lifetime Achievement Award.
Of course,
it was the first time they gave it to him. First time it was handed out.
Here you go, son.
Yeah, but boy, it was sad. Yeah, he's getting a little up there in age, but he sang it to his wife.
Yeah.
And it's one of the songs. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a good song. But like when he's performing it, he's choking through the song because he knows the meaning of it. And I mean, he's getting up there in age too.
Yeah.
It was hard to watch. It was a good performance, but also like, oh man, this is hard to watch because it kind of reminds me of myself.
Yeah.
A little bit reflective as I'm watching it.
This will elicit some strong comments from our listeners about the 90s had to be the best decade for music. Just across the board.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about pop or 90s grunge or 90s country, 90s rap, pick any genre and they were at the top of their game in the 90s.
If you throw the early 2000s in there, I'll agree with you.
Yeah, we can bleed over, a little bit.
But they're all coming back. I want to go see Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
But I want to be up a little higher so I can watch everything.
Yeah.
Because they have those circle, the pit, and they have like the mosh pits in there, and as he's playing, and they're, building up the thing, building up the song, and they just run and clash at each other. Oh, the song was called Remember When.
Oh, yeah. Alan Jackson has one of his that'll get me a little choked up is his Drive.
Oh, yeah, especially if you have daughters.
Well, that, and like, I get it. Like, I have a boat. First thing he talks about is a boat. Like, when I got one of my little boys driving the boat, it's like, man, making memories.
Yeah, it's
good music.
It's good music.
It's good music.
Good music. That's cleaning house music, too.
Yeah.
Get you in a good mood.
It is.
So the Pope is American.
Yeah.
So we're watching it in my class. Like I'm telling my students, I'm like, all right, guys, history says that, it's going to take a couple days, but we'll still watch it, because it's kind of the end of the year where after they're also like giving a whole bunch, like the commentators or the Vatican News or the Vatican Station or whatever. And they are like talking about the history of it. And, well, then the smoke comes out. And I'm like, man, that's really quick.
Yeah.
Like, Shedeur Sanders didn't even get picked that quick. But then, like, he comes out, and I'm like, who is it going to be? Like, I'm trying to, like, rack my brain of who I had read. And we watched the Cardinals, and then, like, the Cardinal Pledge or whatever it was the first day before they closed the Vatican. Or would close the doors for them to go in. And I'm like, what if he's American? And one of my students was like, Coach Smith, there's never been an American Pope. I don't know if this kid's Catholic or he had just done some research on it. And I was like, yeah, probably not. You're probably right. Because then we looked up how many American cardinals there were. Not maybe a handful, 5 or so. So when it came out American, of course, you know what I did. I'm like, USA, USA, USA. And, I'm just chanting across the school as it's coming out. And, of course, everybody's looking at me like I'm a weirdo, but it's fine.
I didn't know you cared this much.
I don't care this much. Yeah, and I
just like how Trump tariffs are even affecting Catholicism. Now even the Pope is American made.
Yeah.
That's not my joke. It's been
great. It's been all over. It's been all over the socials.
But it's pretty funny.
We're going to go down the set list a little bit here, but he's had a good week.
Trump had a good week. Good weekend.
Before we hop into that, though, I was thinking about this today because, we keep getting called MAGA cult and Trump supporters and all that stuff. And
I got a lot of that this week.
Yeah, and I don't really feel like we're a pro.
I think this is it. Because I got called out a lot this week by a couple of people, and so I did some thinking about it.
Hold on, is that what the red pill is at the bottom?
No.
Okay.
It's different. So we started this in October, a few weeks before the election day, right?
Correct.
But you and I have been talking politics for years.
Correct.
And you and I were talking politics in 2016 through into 2020 and after, in the aftermath of all that. And so I think all of the listeners on our podcast haven't heard us not be really one way or the other, but to call it like we see it.
Right.
There's shady stuff on both sides.
Correct.
And 2016, throughout that presidency, and 2020, definitely through Biden's presidency, we've called all that out. But, you know, a few weeks before the election, that was a lot of our talk. Then Trump won, and he's kind of just been winning a lot since then. There have been a couple of gaffes and a couple of things that we've called out and we've talked about. But for the most part, on the scale of things, if you just want to be honest with yourself and take a step back and see the forest for the trees, he's had a lot of wins. It's been pretty good. And the Democrats have just given really nothing.
Well, again, we've
so like if we're just going to even just talk about what's even just going on, it's going to be hard to come across as anything less than pro-Trump, just because of the wins that he's had. He's done good things, things that have worked out, things that have gone well. And the Democrats have continued to have the only message of Orange Man bad. Like, that's all they've had this whole time. They haven't come out with anything substantial. So, like, there's nothing there to talk about on that side of things.
And there's been nothing to call him out on. I mean, what defeat, quote unquote, has he taken? He had the signal gaffe, which we talked about.
That's somebody he hired, though, and then fired him.
And yeah.
Like, I mean, and people will say, well, you know, the people you hire are a reflection of who you are. Yeah, you've never hired anybody. Because if you've ever hired anybody or built a team anywhere, you're going to have some people that aren't going to work out.
Yeah.
That's just reality. I mean, you could talk about economically, like he's been taken to the woodshed by the left over economy and the stock market. But we talked about that from the very beginning. It was going to be a long road and a painful road to accomplish what needed to be accomplished because we have a serious debt problem. So, and we talked about him doing a lot really quickly so you get the resolution before we get to the midterms. And we'll talk about, like, you're seeing that resolution now already, and it's May. We're not 4 months in.
That's just a precursor to what we're going to talk about tonight, by the way.
Yeah.
So I want to cover one more thing that's a little bit on the...
So to clarify, put a bow on it, I am fiscally conservative and socially conservative, a little less maybe than my fiscal conservatism. So yeah, I do fit into that conservative wing of politics personally, but we will not hesitate to call out either side in the political realm for anything, to both point out good things and then point out things that are not so great or things that should have been done differently.
And I'm probably in the middle of the road on everything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm probably more independent than I am Republican or red because of the industry that I work in.
Sure.
And I'm probably a little more social programs than some conservatives would like. But we haven't had the opportunity to see that yet.
Yeah.
So it's like everything that is happening within this conservative movement right now is going to be supportive. In fact, Gavin Newsom today, I tweeted this out. It's not on the run sheet, but that'll be something we'll have to talk about next week. I mean, he proposed California change their homeless.
Yeah.
Homeless stuff. Now, I don't want to dive deep into that because I haven't had a chance. It was just a blip on the radar today. But like, that's a conservative concept.
It is.
So like all of the movement that you're seeing is moving towards the right.
Yeah, and I think, Gavin Newsom ran on that in 2019 and didn't really do anything about it, but now the climate is such that he can come out, and also we think he's running, so he's going to need to have a feather to put in his hat.
Yeah.
To be able to handle that. But like, if you have a problem with anything that I've said that seems pro-Trump, go listen to Bill Maher and tell me he's not saying the same thing. And he is
not pro-Trump.
Dyed in the wool Democrat and liberal. Like, go listen to Bill Maher and tell me if we're saying anything different. We're not pro-Trump per se in our comments. It's just that's what's happening.
Right.
That's just the news and the story in politics today as it is.
And if you don't like it, Democrats, you got to do something to change it.
Yeah, and you got to have someone to lead. Right now, you got nobody.
So why in the world do they keep sending Biden out there?
Oh my gosh, man!
And I can't help but wonder if Biden and Jill and Joe Biden
You think he's going to run again?
That thought hasn't even come through my brain. There's no way he'll be able to.
There's no way he'll be able to. There's no way he'll have well, Amy Klobuchar, like you said, came out today and said we should have had a primary. Or I think her actual quote was, "We would have been better served by having a primary." So I don't think the Democrat leadership would allow that to happen. So I feel like it is Jill pushing this, trying to have him save face. Like she doesn't want her husband to go out and his legacy to be remembered as the feeble old man who didn't have his wits about him for at least the last couple of years of his presidency. And so put him out there and let him say, "Oh no, I'm Joe the campaign and I still got it." But he doesn't. Like Bill Maher said, like literally, you're reminding everyone why you're not president every time you come out and speak.
But he also, like, I've said this before, and I said this about Popovich. Like, I've seen that face before.
Yeah.
Personally. Like, I've watched a family member of mine, multiple actually, just totally become not themselves. And, like, if you look at Joe Biden 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that's not the same man that's sitting there in front of you. And, like, it's almost to the point to where his family and Jill have got to say no more. But if they continue to push him out there, it's only going to hurt his legacy. And if that's truly what she's trying to do, then there's no way that they're going to be able to salvage that legacy. It's already pretty bad. I mean, he may end up going down as the worst president of all time.
I think her desire is to salvage his legacy, but I think it's having the exact opposite effect. Like, we talked about this before, like history is kind after some time has passed. Like, let some time pass with him out of the spotlight, not even saying anything, and he'll be remembered better than he's remembered today.
I agree. Well, and especially if they continue to overturn everything that he did, because it was just wackadoo, most of it. I mean, like one of the things we got killed on this week on TikTok was when we talked about Pete Hegseth. And about how he was pretty good at his. I think he's doing a good job. I still think that. You can say what you want, but I think he's doing a good job. But like one of the things that I'm reading on the socials is like how Hegseth is not a good leader. Well, okay, but he's at least out there with the troops. He's out there doing the best that he sees how fit. He's not sitting in an office, and he's not a trans person.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing against those people, but like that's not who I want leading the military. I want it to be a Pete Hegseth type guy.
Yeah.
So it's hard as Biden continues to just step on his own legacy.
Yeah. I mean, even saying things like when he was on The View this week that if he would have stayed in the race, he could have beat Trump. He says that he takes responsibility because he was in charge and Trump won, so that's on him. It's his fault. And then he said the reason that VP Harris didn't win is because of sexism and racism.
I got nothing, man. And The View was even almost speechless at some of the statements that he made. They didn't even have anything to say, and these ladies always have something to say.
That's the truth.
And I'm not being mean or...
It was an odd episode.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was weird because they wanted to,
yeah.
They wanted to say something, but then at the same time, it's like, what do you say?
But even Joey Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, like at some point, are like, no, I can't.
I can't.
Just can't. Yeah.
I mean, especially with the hits they took about 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, on when they had to come back and after break and come back after break and
yeah,
they had to
ABC had to do that recently over Kash Patel, and they said that he'd spent more time in the DC nightclubs than he'd spent in his office. Then they had to come back the next day and be like, well,
that's not completely true.
Actually,
I mean, I read this quote.
Exaggerated that. And
you put this on here, and J.D. Vance came out and said, I wish Biden all the best, but I don't really care what he has to say about foreign policy.
Yeah.
I mean, because, again, going back to what we talked about just a second ago about Trump's victories and Trump's wins, I don't remember. I've been racking my brain and researching the last 3 or 4 days to try to find a victory that Biden had.
In foreign policy?
Just in general.
Yeah. Definitely not in foreign policy. I mean, he's got Afghanistan as one of the skins on his wall. Like, you can't.
And if we were recording back then, I would have had a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
Because that was awful.
Yeah.
And it's still the stories that are being told and the books that are being written about that. You know, you obviously don't want to take it as 100% truth because you never know.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't there. I didn't witness it. But I do take those firsthand accounts. I read those firsthand accounts. And if that's what you're putting out there, I can't find a positive note. And I'm trying.
No.
This is going to sound like a very pro-Trump episode.
He's had a good week.
He had a good week, and so
I got no problem with this sounding like a very pro-Trump episode. He had a very good week, and a lot of the things that we're going to talk about that he did well this week and that are coming up in the future are things that benefit all Americans.
So let's just hop right in.
Especially him getting a new airplane.
Okay, you want to talk about that first?
Sure, let's get it out of the way.
That airplane, I researched today. The Air Force One. I'm hoping the Twitch is there, but I don't know if the Twitch is there to kind of comment on this. But Air Force One costs between $3 and $5 billion, depending on what has to be done to this airplane. So right there, you've saved that amount of money because they have to replace them every certain amount of years. I don't remember what the exact dates were. They
refurbish them every certain amount of years, but the one currently flying is 40 years old.
Yeah. So, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Do you like this move?
The airplane?
Yes.
I think it's a good thing because this, seems a little crazy. Apparently, we're on the wait list for one of these 747-8s.
Yes, I read that today.
And Qatar has one, like here. And they're so freaking rich over there.
Yeah, they have a lot of money.
I mean, it's not technically the government, it's the royal families. But here's the biggest pushback is, and Bernie Sanders flat out came out and said he cannot accept this. It's against the law. And it's not, because Trump isn't accepting it. The DOD is. It'll be given to the Department of Defense. They'll convert it to Air Force One when it's completed. And the reason that this is happening is because the United States has agreed and does have contracts to buy new 747-8s from Boeing. So this is a Band-Aid new airplane.
Right.
For Trump to fly in. And then about the time he leaves office is when the other two new ones will be delivered by Boeing and converted. And
right.
So at that time, but right before Trump leaves office, this one from Qatar will go to the museum and be the property of the museum. Trump's presidential museum. And that's where it'll live.
It'll be like Elvis.
Which is kind of crazy. That new of an airplane. Like, normally they take the retired ones. Like, I've been to a few of the Air Force museums. I've been to the presidential museums. And when they have one in there, it's usually an older one.
Yeah.
This thing's going to be, like,
brand new.
Pretty dang new. It's going to sit in a museum.
What year is this airplane?
I don't know. Recent.
I just think that, like, they'll have to take and put that all the way down to the bones and then refurbish everything in it to make sure that there's nothing inside of that airplane that can track it or anything like that.
I don't think they will take it down to the bones, and won't say any more on this, but a lot of that takes place very close to where we live for that particular airplane, which is kind of cool.
I mean, you can see it from the road when it's there.
But they have equipment to find out if there's anything on it.
Right.
So I'm not worried about that. I think it's kind of cool.
So winning streak number 1, the Pakistani-India ceasefire. My favorite quote, and he said this on the campaign trail. The Twitch says the airplane is 13 years old. That's young compared to some of the older ones that we have. Are you looking at something over there before we move on?
Yeah. I got fewer years of that, but whatever.
It's recent. So the Pakistani India ceasefire starts at Sunday, 5 o'clock. Is that what I read? 5 p.m. As of Sunday, this past Sunday.
Yeah. Yesterday.
Trump was interviewed or asked in the Oval Office last week when it was brought to his attention that this was happening. He said, what do you want me to do about it? Let him fight. Let him fight. And he said that on the campaign trail, not specifically about India and Pakistan.
Yeah.
Now, I do think it's very interesting that these are two nuclear powers.
Right.
They supposedly
always fight.
They've been fighting a long time.
They hate each other.
I'm not going to dive into the history of that, but man, if you want to do a deep, good history dive with a lot of confusing names, dive into that one.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good history. It's an interesting history and how that played out and why it is the way it is. It's very similar to what's happening in Gaza and Israel, and you can blame the British on that for that, by the way. Mm-hmm. But anyways, I digress. Trump said on the campaign trail, especially when it came to Ukraine and Russia, all I want is for people to not die. And so when he says that comes from the same mindset of just let them fight. We're not going to get involved.
Yeah.
And I know that there were some trade things. I'll let you talk about that because I saw you put that on there. But I just think that why do we need to get involved if it doesn't have anything to do with us?
I think the let them fight, there's more to that statement than just... It's not apathy from Trump. What he is saying is, sure, y'all go fight. I'm not sending you anything. We're not picking a side. We're not sending anything to India. We're not sending anything to Pakistan. Of course, we're not going to do that, but we're not going to aid India. We're not going to send you anything. And sometimes when the U.S. says, we're not going to help you fight a war, the war seems to stop. That's the thing about...
It's amazing how that works.
That's the thing about Ukraine is that everybody's like, well, Trump doesn't want peace. He's not going to send any more money to help out Ukraine. Listen, people, take a step back for a second. Sending money to Ukraine does not create peace. It keeps the war going.
Right.
Think about that. Without us sending money, the war stops. Now, I don't want Russia to claim all of Ukraine, and you know what? They're not going to. But Ukraine is also not going to look the same as it did before either because they got attacked by a bigger country.
Right.
And we're not out there to fix all those problems over here in America. That's not our place. So stopping funding something is a peaceful solution. Whereas continuing to send money continues the war. So I think Trump saying that was saying more than just he didn't care. He was just saying let them fight. That's their business. That's their part of the country. But he did have conversations with both countries' leadership saying, we're not going to do any trade with you if you do this. We don't want, Trump does not want wars all across the country, all across the world, I'm sorry. He is not a fan of that. He does not want that. And so he said, hey, if you do this, we do a lot of trade with you, India. We do some trade with you, Pakistan. We can certainly do more, but we're not going to if you do this. And they had a conversation. I am sure. All of the Trump haters are saying there are all these other things that led to it. But Trump's statements were not a small part.
They were pointed.
Yeah. They made a point.
We'll kind of move on after this. I read an article last week about how there are people around the globe and historians in the world that believe World War III has already started. And I'm kind of reflecting on that a little bit. And this is going to lead into our next point. The reason that I believe that World War III has not started is because Hamas released the American Israeli citizen today.
Yeah.
He went back to his family, and the guy, as he's running to his family, he hugs his family, he kisses his family, and then he says, "Thank you, Trump."
Yeah.
Because the whole reason that this happened is because of Marco Rubio went over there and got it settled. Mm-hmm. A notch for Marco Rubio and Donald Trump.
That and sidebar, we'll come back to Aiden Alexander, who was released today. But in just a very small blip on the news stories today, our six B-2 bombers that were at Diego Garcia are now back home. And they were over there for Iran.
Yeah.
And now they're back home.
Yeah.
So that's not being talked about in the news at all today, but that is a huge development whenever we were putting bombers in Diego Garcia.
Okay, so for those that don't know where Diego Garcia is a Air Force base that is in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Okay, a lot of Desert Storm attacks started there, and it is literally an atoll in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Our bombers can reach anywhere, so they can go from Hawaii to Diego Garcia, and they're stationed there, and they can be up in the air in a matter of minutes. So if you're curious on where that's at, look it up. That's where
Essentially,
I did a whole research project on Diego Garcia, actually.
Essentially a forward bomber
Who knew
base.
that was going to come in handy one day.
But essentially a forward base for launching bombers. We've used Diego Garcia for the Iraqi War, Desert Storm, all of them. So
all of the Middle East conflicts.
Anything that takes place in the Middle East.
Which I think, too, plays into the whole India. I keep wanting to say Indian, but it's not. It's India and Pakistani conflict as well.
Yeah.
Because if we were going to be involved, we would have people there in Diego Garcia.
But Aiden Alexander was believed to be, well, he's believed by many he could be dead. But he was believed to be, if there was any hostages still living, that he was the last one. And he was released today. Trump, that was a campaign promise.
Another promise.
Now, in true Trump hyperbole, he said on day one. But when Trump says on day one, he means that's what he's going to be working on day one. And so we are less than 4 months in.
I mean,
and they're all home.
We're less than 200 days. We just talked about the 100-day.
Yeah, and they're all home.
Man, we sound like Gold Magazine today. On the warfront conflict area, I don't even know how to say that. Front lines, whatever, how do you want to say it? Putin and Zelensky to meet in Turkey on Thursday.
Do you like them meeting face to face, the actual leaders meeting? Like, I see good and bad.
My brain automatically goes back to World War II. And World War II was solved quicker. Some historians might argue, but for the most part, when the world leaders sat down across from each other and were able to have a face-to-face conversation.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing that I wish, and I don't know, obviously we're not involved and I'm not there, but I wonder if the conversation is going to be had in Russian or another language. Because Zelensky speaks Russian, and he speaks English, and he speaks Ukrainian, or the other Slavic language that is there. So I wonder what that is going to be like. Now, obviously, we will never know for another 50, 60, 70 years whenever the books are written about it. But, yeah, my easy answer is yes, I think so. Because you can get a lot more solved if it's mano a mano sitting here saying, okay, this is what we want, this is what I want, no middleman.
Yeah.
I wish Trump was there. But Trump doesn't speak Russian, so.
Well,
and he may be because he's in the Middle East right now.
Well, he may. I think there's a lot to like about Putin and Zelensky being face to face and getting this thing figured out. But two things. I don't think Putin recognizes Zelensky as an equal. And so approaching him as an equal for that conversation, I think, hinders the conversation from the get-go. And then I think Zelensky, if he feels that he's being viewed as anything less than an equal by Putin, hinders the conversation from the get-go. There's a lot of egos in that room. Whereas sometimes whenever it's being discussed a couple rungs down the totem pole, with, Marco Rubio or another State Department official, then cooler heads. I give it a good chance for these two guys, one of these two guys, to get up and walk away from the table because it's those two guys in the room.
Yeah, I mean, you may be right. I maybe have rose-colored glasses on this.
I think there's a really good chance for a good development. I'm cautious on that one point.
They've never met in person, by the way,
Yeah,
since the conflict has started. On a quick Google. I mean, maybe
that's
the
me
Twitch
from the
can
outside
find
looking
something.
in. Also,
I think it's a good thing, though. I do think it's at least it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because those two specifically, and we saw this when Zelensky felt disrespected in the Oval Office, but I think that Putin and Zelensky, they have to sit in front of each other in this situation.
Yeah.
They have to. Because does Zelensky trust that the person he's sending isn't a Russian spy?
Yeah.
There's all these different variables that go into it. And so is that something that's going to change the outlook on it? I don't know, but I do think that them sitting down and talking is a good thing.
And as a counterpoint to what I just said, they have tried. The cricket's back.
The cricket is back.
They have tried the diplomat and back channels conversations before. It's not like they haven't tried it. So they've tried that and it didn't work. So this could be the logical next step. It's fine. It's fine.
I love it.
We have a cricket season here in Texas.
He's back.
He needs a name.
He does need a name.
All right, China.
So I sent you a text. And the text said, I'm going to have your help on this.
I think high points are fine here. So both countries agreed as of Wednesday of this week, May 14th, to both cut the tariff percentages down by 115%. They were at 145 from us on China and 125 from China on us. So that drops it down to 30% tariff for us on Chinese and 10% them on us. It's good for 90 days to work out a more permanent solution. And just on that news, and probably some other Trump wins, today the Dow Jones finished up almost to 1,200 points.
As of 4 o'clock, there was $1.5 trillion made in the stock market today.
Yeah. So, like I said before, the stock market is not an indicator of how well the economy is doing.
Right.
Everyone thinks it is. And like they say, oh my gosh, it's like, what's the stock market doing? That's not a picture of the economy per se. It is a picture of whether investors think there is uncertainty out there. So when there's uncertainty, the market drops. When there's certainty and you get some concrete and you get a foothold, the market goes up. And that's what you saw today with the China trade deal. They said, okay, now we can shove the money back into it. And just for a little perspective, since January 20th, the stock market is only down, the Dow is only down a total of like 1,550 points. And there was a ramp up right before the inauguration, a little Trump ramp up. So if you go back to like January 12th, the stock market right now is higher than it was on January 12th. Because the week leading up to the inauguration had a pretty big bump. But right now we're a little over 1,500 points below where it was on January 20th, which is something Trump will be judged by. But also, just to put history in perspective about Chinese tariffs, they've gotten a lot of news in the last 3 or 4 months, really the last couple of months, with the Liberation Day tariffs and announcements. When Biden left office, China's tariffs on us were 125%. That doesn't get talked about a lot. When Trump took office for the first time in 2017, averaged around 8%. So Trump comes in, wins the 2016 election, 2017, begins using tariffs against China, okay, as part of his policy and trade policy. They're sitting at about 8% as your baseline. When Trump leaves office, they're at about 21% on average. So you see more than doubling from 8% up to 21%. But from when Trump leaves office in 2021 to when Biden leaves office, the Chinese tariffs rise by over 100% to 125% under Biden. So the biggest gain in Chinese tariffs came under the Biden administration, not under the Trump administration. Trump increased that up to 145.
Right.
Okay. And now they're down to 30 and 10. So if you're a business who does a lot of business with China, this is a big day for you. It's not down to 2016 levels, but it's down closer to 2020 levels.
And I also wonder if this is not the market adjusting post-COVID. Do you think that? Just a thought that came into my head. Because there was such a backlog of everything.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of seeing the market adjust back to pre-COVID things.
And in the last several weeks, you've seen another backlog created because of the tariffs, right?
Right.
So I think you're going to see that ramp up, at least for the next 90 days, because they know they have a 90-day reprieve. So
it'll just be, it was a campaign promise to fix the economy, to fix the debt problem. And so is this another one of those campaign promises coming to fruition? And it's going to be like, and I think people too, like this is not the end all be all.
No.
This is a 90-day fix.
Right.
And you will see a lot of things move in and out of both China and America over the next 90 days. But the thing that'll be interesting to watch is the cost of goods as things start to flood into the United States.
Right. I also think it points out Trump's ability to pivot. Like, he even said, when he backed off on the just blanket tariffs across the board with everyone, that had an effect on the economy, so he pulled back a little bit on that. Now, he didn't just leave these tariffs with China. He continued working with a trade policy, and now we have this agreement. It's good for 90 days, and I do think they will get to a more permanent agreement. And so it shows his ability to say, okay, I realize what I'm doing is something we need to do, because we had a huge tariff deficit between us and China that needed to be addressed. But I also understand and realize the effect it has on the economy.
Yeah. And something that was totally not missed because I saw it, but is the trade deal with Great Britain. And that was something that was kind of pushed to the back because China's trade deficit is such a big deal.
Right.
And I don't I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head. I mean, it's not even on the run sheet, but it was very American friendly, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be, I don't think you're going to, I think his idea is that he was going to bring Musk in, and Musk was going to, they thought it was a simple solution.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're seeing, well, we can't just carte blanche cut everything. And so that's another pivot that you're seeing, because Musk hasn't been in the news, the last 2.5 weeks?
I know.
So it's one of those things where, okay, we came in, rapid fire, real quick, made a big splash. Now we see what we can and can't do, how it affects the market, and we'll see if that plays out and how it plays out. I think you'll slowly start to see more and more cuts, but they'll be more precise than what we've had in the
more
past.
surgical, like we talked about on the previous podcast. But one thing that reducing tariffs here also does is, because tariffs are viewed as, even though they're not, tariffs are not inflation, but the market views tariffs many times as similar to inflation. So by reducing these tariffs, what Trump has also allowed to happen is the potential for interest rates to be cut, because tariffs were creating a pseudo type of inflation. And whenever you have increasing inflation or inflation instability, then they're not going to cut rates.
Right.
Because they're going to want to keep that in check. So the FOMC met last week and decided to keep rates where they were. Now with this China deal, I don't have a crystal ball, but my crystal ball would say the next time the FOMC meets, they'll drop rates by probably 25 basis points.
How often do they meet?
I don't know.
Is it 90 days?
No.
Okay.
I'll look that up, because it's not quite monthly. It's on a schedule. It's not every month, but it's
like every other month or something like that, probably.
And then some months it doubles up. Or maybe they just take some months off. 8 times a year. I knew it wasn't monthly, but it's not.
It's more than quarterly.
Right. It's 8 times a year. So, yeah. Every 6 to 8 weeks. So, yeah, it wasn't quite monthly, and it's not like every other month, but It's more often than that. So, yeah, 8 times a year is the FOMC. So, 6 weeks from now, see the effect of the China trade deal. And, I don't know, you drop rates, quarter, 25 basis points, 50 basis points, be massive.
Mark it down. Mark this point. Because, I think you're probably right. I don't know enough about it to have an opinion on it like you do.
Now,
but
if Trump could have orchestrated the China trade deal when the FOMC was meeting last week, man, you would have seen that Dow would have jumped 3,000 points.
You think so?
Oh my gosh, yes. Because that's one of the things that keeps holding it back is we got to understand if rates are higher, then that squashes the amount of capital that companies can invest. Right. And so if they're not investing capital, the market's not going to grow. The Dow's not going to go up. So
we had that long conversation about GM last week. Do you think that changes the outcome of their profits?
Yeah. I think the FP&A.
What's the FP&A?
Financial performance, and it's the people who do budgeting and strategic forecasting for companies.
Okay.
Financial performance, and I should look that up. It's called FP&A. And they do strategic planning and budgeting for companies. Every major company has an FP&A department, and there are a bunch of accountants and a bunch of CPAs that do that fund work. I think it's really cool. Forecasting and budgeting, whoever those guys are for companies right now, they're like, listen, like, just don't ask me anything. They're doing probably like, forecasting budgets that are, 2 months and 90 days versus annual, because I think you just can't right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. And again, that's why you see the market dropping.
Yeah. And is that volatility, does that hurt the forecast, or does it, if you have a person that's like Trump in office, or is it better to have a person like Biden in office in those scenarios where he's not going to do anything to affect the economy, but Trump is trying to, the ultimate goal is to cut the deficit?
I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners are a little more, they're not as risk averse, like they're more risk takers. That's why they went out in business for themselves versus working for a company kind of thing. So I think they kind of like that, because it's like, yeah, Trump is a little bit of a roller coaster, is a little bit of a wild ride, but at the end of the day, I think we're going to wind up in a better spot.
Okay. The long game is okay.
Yeah. It's just hard to forecast because GM and Ford, to pick that industry, since we were talking about them, they're trying to figure out how many cars they're going to sell.
Right. Which
has such a trickle-down effect. Like how many cars we're going to sell is how many, staff we need, how many employees we have. How many factories are running, how many lines in those factories are running, how many parts we're ordering. Like everything has such that trickle-down effect by forecasting what our sales are going to be, and our sales are directly related to how many cars we're going to sell. So it is a difficult job, and it gets more difficult when you have market volatility like this and tariffs that affect the price of your goods coming in the door, and then even tariffs whenever you're exporting, reciprocal tariffs to other countries. So, but I think at the end of the day, they feel like they're going to wind up in a better spot.
Fair. Okay, another win for Trump. He had an executive order about prescription costs.
I saw that.
I'm not sure how I feel about this yet. And I'm trying my best to not have hard opinions on things that I don't have enough knowledge about. The surface opinion on this it's a good thing. But I could see, as I think this through, I could see where it would harm, especially the pharmaceutical companies.
Sure.
However, not a big pharmaceutical company guy.
Not a big fan of those guys.
So I don't think you should have to pay. I have several people in my life that have to pay for diabetes medicine, and that is a life or death medicine. It should not cost them an entire paycheck to have to pay for that. Does that make me a socialist? If that does, then I guess I am. But the problem is you're telling this person they have to take this medicine in order to live their daily life.
Right.
I'm just using that as an example. I don't know if that's on the list of cost-cutting prescriptions. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know that a medicine that I had to take at one point was like $4. And then now all of a sudden it was like $400 and it wasn't covered by my insurance anymore because something changed.
Yeah.
I still have to take it. Like, it's not whether I have to pay $4 or $400. I still have to take it. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Pharmaceutical companies bring out the worst in a capitalist society.
oh my God.
I mean, that's
the truest statement you've ever said. Because I think they should be able to make money.
Yeah. And the issue is with how we do things in a free market and in capitalism is if you do all the research and develop this drug, it gets to be yours for a while.
10 years.
You get to have that patent. And if it's what everybody needs and you're the only one making it, you can essentially charge whatever you want. And so patents, love them or hate them, reduce competition. And so that is a unintended consequence of a free market allowing patents. But if you don't allow patents, then you don't get the people investing the R&D money
Right.
to create what you need. So like we've talked about before, I'm definitely a capitalist. I'm a free market capitalist, tried and true. But I've said before, and I'll say again, it is not a perfect system.
Right.
It has its flaws, and that is one of those flaws, is that to get people to spend the money to hire the scientists or the researchers or the engineers, whatever you need, to do the R&D, to create the product that everyone needs, you have to tell them, okay, you're going to be able to make a S ton of money on this thing to recoup all that cost and make you a lot of money for your company for at least 10 years.
Well, and two, like, the unintended consequences of a drug. So, for example, there's a lot of news coverage right now about Ozempic and Wegovy,
Yeah.
right, as a weight loss drug. Well, that's been used for 5 to 10 years now. I mean, it's not 10 because obviously it would be without the patent, but for other diabetic and blood sugar and things like that, well, now they're finding out all these other benefits of it. Fatty liver disease.
Alzheimer's patients.
Alzheimer's patients. I mean, so I don't know if Wegovy and Ozempic is on that list. I don't know. But I think that there has to be a point to where, okay, you've made $100 billion.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Yeah.
Now, what is that limit? I don't know.
Yeah.
Should there be a limit? I don't think so. But also, like, it goes back to what I said at the beginning of this point. If you're taking a life-saving drug, you shouldn't have to pay your entire monthly paycheck to get it.
Yeah.
And it's a slippery slope too, brother, because if you go down that path of saying, well, we're going to cap this, we're going to cap this, we're going to cap this, where does it stop?
That's what I don't like about it. I'm generally not a fan ever of price ceilings or price floors. When you say you have to pay this much for something, like they prop up commodity prices.
Correct.
In agriculture.
Right.
So that the farmer can make a certain amount of money. They put price ceilings on things. Like a good example would be like rent control in a large city.
Right.
Where you say, hey, you own this apartment building, but you can't charge more than this dollar amount per square foot or per unit for rent. So what's the unintended consequence of that is you have basically a slum.
Right.
Because the landlord's not making any money whatsoever on this thing. He just owns the real estate. And so he doesn't have money. He's not going to fix things. He's not going to remodel and make it better.
Right.
Because it's a rent-controlled building. So there's an unintended consequence in that for people to be able to live and be able to afford a space in rent control, in a rent-controlled apartment, but they're going to live in a slum as an unintended consequence of that. The unintended consequence of this, so one of the parts of the executive order is it requires, it's called, I don't know why it's called this, most favored nation status. What that basically means is they can't charge us more than what this drug's being charged in other countries. The unintended consequences could be that drug companies pull out of those countries. And now this life-saving medication that we have that was available to us at this cheaper rate is now not available in these other countries. Because this drug company's like, yeah, we've been selling this to this third world country or this second world country for this amount of money. But we're going to just pull out completely because then that we make more money.
Right.
if we just keep selling it to America for this price. Or they raise the price in those other places. You know, there's always unintended consequences when you try to mess with the market like that.
Right. Well, it goes back when they were trying to cap the price of gas.
Yeah.
A couple years ago when it was like $5-6 a gallon. Right after COVID kind of started being released and the gas prices just skyrocketed.
Yeah. But and here's the thing that I think needs to be said about this. As a person, as a human, I can be like, I love this. Like you say, for someone to be able to afford a life-saving medication that they need is great. I love that as a human. From an economic standpoint, from a conservative standpoint, I mean, anytime I hear a conservative or a Republican stand up and say, we're not going to let them charge too much for this, I'm like, that's not a conservative ideal.
Right.
That's not fiscal conservatism. Conservatives don't believe in price ceilings. We are a free market, and like we say, it is a flawed system. Maybe what we should propose to our congressman or senator is patent reform. Like once you have recouped your R&D cost plus a certain percentage, then your patent's over. I don't know. That still would have other unintended consequences.
Yeah,
like
anytime
you put any, like it's, what is it in the Marvel movies, all the timelines?
Yeah.
Anytime you push one in one direction,
That butterfly effect.
it affects everything else. So
I just think that something has to be done, right? And I think that it's so complicated. It like makes my head spin.
Yeah.
Almost, because it's like on the surface level, a lot of these things that are happening, I'm like, okay, yeah, I totally agree with that. But then like when I sit down and I reflect on it more, I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Here's the thing, though. It's similar to what we've talked about on our student loan problem. Like, there's more than one way to skin a cat. But one of the things you have with, like with student loans is because student loans are available, it makes college more expensive. Like, that's a way to address that issue is the predatory lending, things like that. I can't remember where I was going with this when I dropped the microphone. Oh, a lot of people bring up other countries and say, hey, we are, like other countries have universal health care and it works for them. Other countries are different.
And they don't have 300 million people in it.
They don't have 300 million people in it. They also don't have all these chemicals and junk in their food.
Right.
Which makes people sick and unhealthy.
Correct.
So that was my point that I was going to make is like maybe RFK coming in the other side of this and trying to make food more healthy and America more healthy again reduces that need, for those medicines, for that health care to a point that makes things more affordable.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about that though,
because if I'm selling diabetes drugs, dude, I'm buying everybody boxes of potato chips, right? Like that's how you get your customer.
Yeah.
In most cases,
and you definitely don't want people to get healthy, right? On the surface, I think it's a wait and see for me. I'm not gonna lean one way or the other because it's just if we were to have our chart up here, our grandioso chart that doesn't exist. I would be stand pat. That's where I would be because I just don't think that you can. There's too many variables to play one way or the other, and that's a very like non-confrontational point to make. But at the same time, it's like I just don't know how this looks because I can't recall a time where the price has been capped and it works.
Yeah,
long term.
Yeah.
Because I don't see it. I don't know. It's complicated.
One of the best things for the economy is when you get out of the way for a free market, for a capitalist society. But allowing patents, which stifles competition, flat out doesn't allow competition,
right.
is not getting out of the way. So
right.
If you're going to push on this side, you got to push a little bit more on this side, try
right.
to keep it in between the lines.
Adam Smith would not like that. Because I just, I don't think you're going to, I'm trying to close this in a fashion to where we can transition, but there's just not a good way to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's very open-ended, and it'll be an interesting wait and see.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you won't see the effects of this for years.
So let's talk about the big, beautiful economic bill.
So it's going to markup in committee tomorrow, which means that's when they change language, do amendments, and basically decide ultimately if they're going to vote it out of committee. So that happens tomorrow, which would be May 13th. We have to get this thing passed by the end of the month because that's when the government shuts down again. And this is the economic bill to continue funding the government. And that's why they put these things with those bills, because they only require a simple majority to pass. And you have the extra encouragement to pass it whenever the government's going to shut down if you don't. So a couple things that are in it. It makes the Trump tax reforms of 2017 permanent. So we call it the TCJA. That's the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, passed in 2017, took effect for tax year 2018. Some of the key points from TCJA was that's where your child tax credit got doubled. So I just want to point out that there's been a lot of talk on the Democrat side about expanding the child tax credit. Biden never did. Trump did, doubled it. It was $1,000. 2016, 2017, doubled to $2,000 as of tax year 2018. That goes away after next year if this doesn't get extended. So that affects a lot of families.
Right. You and I both fall into that category.
Yes. Trump basically doubled the standard deduction. So it does a couple things. It makes your tax filing a little more simple because fewer people are itemizing, which basically...
We've talked about that before.
Yeah, well, we talked about that. So I'm not going to get down the weeds of that again, but that is a good thing. And for some people, it gives you more of a deduction than you would have gotten if you did itemize. So
Right.
Doubling the standard deduction, great. Affects a lot of families, a lot of working class, middle class Americans with families. Then more of the business things. That's two of the main things on the personal side of the tax law. But on the business side, Trump introduced a new tax deduction with the TCJA called the QBI deduction, which stands for Qualified Business Income Deduction. This is all of your small and medium businesses, basically, that are pass-through entities, like not your huge corporations, not any corporations, but your S corporations, your partnerships, your small and medium businesses, your mom and pop stores down the road. They got a 20% deduction right off of their business income. So 20% off the top of their business income got deducted on their personal tax return. Trump, this increases that to 23%, but makes that permanent. That was a big deal. That helped out a lot of small and medium businesses. Also, I'm really not getting into the weeds on this, but it returns 100% expensing to some things that weren't allowed to be expensed at 100% before. So, for example, we talked about R&D for pharmaceuticals. Normally, any like R&D expenses where you're developing a product, you're not allowed to expense those the year that you incur them. So you have to amortize them over 5 years or 15 years, depending on what it is. What that does, and that may sound like really tax jargon or whatever, the effect of that is phantom income is being recognized by companies that have R&D expenses because they took in this much amount of money this year, they spent this much, and in those expenses are research and development expenses. But some of those get pulled out and spread out over 5 years so that their bottom line actually shows they made more money than they did.
Gotcha.
Which means they're paying taxes on more cash than they actually have. And for some businesses, that is substantial.
Right.
And that went away after 22. So that was a part of the TCJA part that sunsetted way too early. I'm sure Trump thought he was going to be reelected. in 2020, and he would extend it then. He didn't. Biden did not re-extend it, and so a lot of businesses the last couple of years have really hurt
as far as their research and development
because of that.
Gotcha.
He added one thing that I want to bring up, though, to the 100% expensing, and that is building new factories.
Right.
Normally, if you build a new commercial building, that's depreciated or expensed over 39 years.
Really?
It's a long time.
It's a long time.
But when you think about it, the useful life of a commercial building probably is close to like 40 years. So,
right.
But because Trump wants to bring more manufacturing back onshore, they're going to allow 100% expense. So you say your company, then say your taxable net income at the end of the year is $5 million. Okay. Medium-sized business. But say you build a new factory and you spend $3 million building a new factory, you get to expense that whole thing in year one and greatly reduce your tax burden and what your shareholders or partners are going to pay in tax that year because they're going to expense that whole building that year.
Right.
Like that's a huge benefit.
Can you choose to stretch it out?
Yes.
Okay.
And, well, I haven't seen the detail in the bill. I've just been reading a synopsis. But
right.
Generally speaking, what they have allowed to do in the past is you can take 100%, or you can say, I want to take 50 and I'm going to, spread out the other 50.
Gotcha.
Like you got kind of a sliding scale there of what you want to do.
Gotcha.
Or you can still spread out the whole thing if you want to.
Fair.
And
over the 39 years.
Yes.
Still. Okay.
Yeah. But another thing that's huge, that was extremely unpopular that Biden did, and I remember seeing this on Facebook, y'all. Like, I just stopped answering questions on this on Facebook and asked people to stop tagging me in post. Every time I see a post like on our neighborhood Facebook page or anywhere that I'm friends with and says, anybody know a good CPA? I'm just like praying nobody mentions my name.
I'm going to start tagging you in everything.
Because most of the time those questions are so like far-fetched and you're basically just telling people stuff they don't want to hear.
Right.
Like, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not the guy on TikTok who's like, if you have an LLC, you'll never pay no taxes a day of your life. I'm like, that's not true. That's called tax fraud. So I'm not that guy. But this is the Venmo and PayPal $600 rule. So this is when people who had their side gigs, and so say whatever they're doing is their side gig, and they're like, and they get paid through PayPal or Venmo. I'm sure you know a million people who make cheerleading bows. My sister-in-law has a great charcuterie business, like has taken that thing from the ground up and does beautiful spreads. Like she's so talented. It's gorgeous.
Or shameless plug here, our t-shirt
march. Yes.
By the way, nice shirt you got on there.
I do.
We have 2 new ones out there, by the way.
Yeah. So Biden, one of his rules was if someone gets over $600 through PayPal or Venmo has to send you what's called a 1099-K, and you have to report that income, which, let's all say, if you have a business and you're selling things and making money, you should report the income. But it was just kind of this like burdensome type of rule. Is very unpopular and nobody likes it, right? And it's where like you have to select that family and friends thing on Venmo and PayPal,
right? Because
that would not put it into that taxable bucket.
Right.
If you did that, if I'm just sending you $30, like I'm not like, that's not your business. I'm just sending you $30. So it was very cumbersome and burdensome, and this gets rid of that.
Does it put a cap on it, or just
gets rid of it completely?
That was a dumb rule in the first place.
It was a dumb rule in the first place, and I don't know.
I would bet that I don't do a ton of transactions on Venmo, but I would bet that I've done $600 worth of transactions.
Oh yeah. So those are the high points. Basically, the big beautiful bill adds a few extra things, but also makes those TCJA cuts permanent.
So the no tax on tips?
No tax on tips is in there.
And no tax on overtime?
That's going to be huge. I mean, some people, like, I spent some years in the restaurant business, and a lot of those, like, upper-level employees make all their money on overtime.
Right.
Their regular 40-hour check is something, but when you start getting that time and a half on overtime.
Right.
And also a lot of businesses in our area pay double time. Buc-ee's, Costco pay double time for certain days and holidays.
Right.
I found out the other day Costco pays double time for Sundays.
Right.
Super cool. Like, all that extra time above your 40 is not taxed. That's huge for some people.
Right.
That's such a tax break on people, and honestly, on hourly employees.
Well, that is the middle class.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Like your CEO who's making tens of millions of dollars doesn't care about that tax, but the guy who's making $25 an hour,
the type of money that puts back in his pocket.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I think that people have missed is like that democratic concept of like, why would you want to tax that person more? That kind of irritates me because I just don't know enough about tax policy. But it's like, to me, there are simple things that you could fix in the economy. And doing away with the Venmo one, that's one. Not taxing on tips. If you're working for tips, that means you're probably making close to minimum wage anyways.
Yep, right.
So why are you taxing them even more?
Yeah.
End statement. Mic drop.
It'll be interesting to see the left's comments about this bill. They're going to all vote against it. I assume this is going to be a pretty close party line vote. Good thing is you only need a simple majority, which we have. So as long as the Republicans stay in line and vote the party line, then this thing's going to pass. The government's going to get funded. I think these TCJA tax cuts are going to be amazing because they do help out, like the major points of the bill help out families, child tax credit, expanded standard deduction, and small and medium businesses, those mom and pop businesses that are up and down Main Street, the ones that are funding your kids' rec league sports and things like that. It's going to help them out.
Right.
Like, tell me why that's a bad thing.
It's not. And
but they're going to find a way to say it.
Jesus Christ. It's just like whenever the whole, whenever RFK came out and they were like, we're going to do away with all the red dye. And then there's the memes of the person drinking like straight red dye or eating a bag of Cheetos. Have you seen that? That's hilarious.
It was like the left wings have gone to drinking straight red dye. It did protest of RFK.
Which is
that's almost accurate.
Ridiculous.
But it's almost accurate.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that caught my eye is the whole nonprofit university thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. To not act into the character that was beneficial to the country or something along those lines.
Yeah,
it
basically there are wonderful nonprofits out there. I was actually listening to a good, because we're Rogan bros, so we might as well plug Rogan while we're talking about this. But if you listen to the Jeremy Renner Rogan podcast, it was really good.
Yeah, he's the one that got ran over by
a snowplow. So I can tell you that I didn't know. I knew that happened to Jeremy Renner a couple years ago.
Dude, that was bad.
I could not tell you right now if like Jerry, I knew he was alive. I knew he survived it, but I couldn't tell you if he was just laying in a bed somewhere or what. But he gets around just fine. He doesn't have a limp. He's full of titanium. He broke 38 bones.
Yeah. His eye was detached from his body.
Both of them.
He could see out of it.
So here's the thing that he said on that podcast. He's like, the pain doesn't bother me. It's the memories.
Yes.
He remembers
everything.
That snowcat, there are 6 wheels that drive the track, and he talked about on that podcast feeling each one of them go over him, and like it would get worse as the wheel would cross over his body, and then he'd get a little bit of relief as he was just under the track, and then the wheel and the track. Man, and
he didn't pass out.
No. Side note, though, what I was bringing that up for is he has a foundation that helps out foster kids, which is really near and dear to my heart. And he talked about their admin cost right now at 8%. So that's a good nonprofit.
Right.
When you have a nonprofit out there that's able to go out and take all the donations in the door and to run the overhead and run the nonprofit, they're only spending 8% of that and the rest of it's going to help. That's a good nonprofit.
Right.
There are lots of nonprofits out there that don't do that. That are basically tax shelters.
Right.
Taking a bunch of free money they don't pay taxes on, and the way they get rid of all that money is they pay everybody exorbitant salaries.
Right.
And so what this bill is saying is like, if you're doing that, we're going to revoke your nonprofit status.
Which is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. You have to if you're going to be a nonprofit, if you're not going to pay taxes, if you're going to operate like a company and call yourself a nonprofit, we're going to come after you.
Are there religious exemptions changing in this?
No.
Okay. Talk about victories as well. Cash Patel had a great week on the socials. I don't know exactly. He was testifying in Senate hearings all week for the FBI budget. He did not bring a budget, not really understanding why, and I don't know if this is a norm. So I feel like if he was called to be there, he should have probably brought a budget.
Uh-huh.
If that's what he's supposed to do, I don't understand exactly the history behind why he was there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he was supposed to do that or if that was just something he was supposed to.
Senate Appropriations Committee is what he's testifying in most of the week, and that's what you're supposed to do is talk about appropriations.
So if he was supposed to bring a budget, he should have done that. Okay. But them going after him for stuff that didn't matter.
Yeah.
Stop trying to do that. Like, we talked about Hegseth last week, how I felt like he was doing a good job, and he seems to be the guy for this job.
Yep.
Okay. I've said before, Tulsi Gabbard seems to be doing really good at her job. RFK seems to be doing good at his job.
Yep.
Marco Rubio seems to be doing good job at his for him. Kash Patel seems to be the perfect guy for this.
Yeah.
I mean, because he said, yes, I should have brought it, but we're not done.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to report back to you.
Yeah.
Well, when they asked him questions, he's like, I already said that.
Yep.
I already told you what the answer was. Now, I'll let you put that. I'll let you talk about the Epstein thing, but I just think that there's no bull in it.
Yeah.
Like, he's very forward. He's very blunt. He's not disrespectful in his responses, which is important because you have to respect the office, even though if you don't respect the person that he's talking to.
Yeah, for sure. Senator Kennedy, he's an off-the-cuff guy. He says some wild things, but he calls it like it is, and I kind of like that about him. He asked him a bunch of questions, and one of the things was, do you think Epstein killed himself? He said, yeah. So Kash Patel is on the record in front of the Senate Appropriations Committee saying, I think Jeffrey Epstein hung himself in his jail cell. He's looked at the evidence, and that's what he thinks. And here's the thing. I know there's plenty of people out there who do not believe that, and that's fine. You can not believe that. But you can't say beyond a shadow of a doubt that he didn't. Like, the guy was facing down the rest of his life in prison as a pedophile. And I'm sure there's all the conspiracy theories out there and all this stuff about what he had in the guard change and look at it. I don't care about all that. Like, if you want to think that, that's fine. Think that. I don't, whatever. I don't know. I wasn't there. Apparently no one was. That's the problem. Unless you think there was guards in his cell doing it. But he did say that, and that was kind of something of note. But
I just think, too, like, he seems to be the perfect guy for that job.
Yeah.
I'm going to reiterate that. And until I'm proven otherwise.
Here's what I like about it. And this may not land well, but I'm going to try anyway. He doesn't, and one thing, RFK doesn't either, because RFK is basically a Democrat beforehand. But he doesn't come in this land with the ultra MAGA base.
Right.
Like, he knows whose administration he's working in. He's definitely MAGA aligned and right wing. And he knows that they would love for him to get in front of that Senate Appropriations Committee and just say, well, we don't know. There could have been some foul play. We're going to look into it.
Right.
And they would have eaten that up.
Right.
But he doesn't think that. And so he just comes out and flat out says, no, I think in 2019 he hung himself in his jail cell. And just leaves it at that.
Well, and then, like,
he's a straight shooter.
How do you rebuttal that?
I mean, there'll be plenty of people who think he's an idiot who have.
But I'm saying, like, in that
nowhere
Senate
near
hearing,
the access to information that he has.
Right.
But he's just a straight shooter. That's what he thinks. He's looked at the evidence, and that's what he says. So, got to give the guy props for that.
And he kept saying, if anybody should be angry about this committee meeting, it should be me.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly the phrasing that he used, and I'm not gonna misquote him, but it was just fascinating to watch because in the previous administration, you would watch those guys fumble about and just not have an answer because most of the time they were unqualified for the jobs that they were in.
Right.
Kash Patel is not that guy.
No. Good pick. I'll save Red Pill for next week.
I do want to talk about the House bills a little bit. This is an important week. House Bill 4, is that it? Has to. There's only been 4 bills passed and signed by Governor Abbott.
We got one more. It's 5 now.
Is it 5?
Yeah.
When did that happen? Today?
Over the weekend.
Okay. So I don't know because I since we've started the podcast, I'm obviously more in tuned. So I don't know if this is normal in terms of like how many bills get signed and are wait until the very last minute. The big education bill was the voucher one that has passed. It was signed last week or the week before last. they have to be out of the House committees and Senate committees by the end of the week.
Right.
That way they can be talked about and debated on the floor. I will be very interested to see how when we come back next week, where we're sitting with the education bill.
Mm-hmm.
Because several of them may not even make it out.
Right.
And I don't know what that looks like, brother.
Yeah, that'll be tough.
So, you sure you want to say it? You sure you want to say it?
Yeah, we'll save it.
All right. So, wrapping up this week in smoke signals. Yours and my favorite time on the podcast. May the 7th, there was an increase in the measles outbreak in Texas. Confirmed a single adult had it, reported in Denton County. As part of the national outbreak exceeding 1,000 cases. Texas cases remain low compared to prior months. That source comes from CBS News. International news, the historical papal election. It was one of the shortest elections ever.
Sure
held.
felt like it.
It sure did.
Yeah.
It sure did. Back in Texas on May the 8th, foreign land ownership ban advances through the House. This is looking to ban any entities from China, Russia. Specifically, those two were named. It has not passed the Senate yet. Still there. This week, the severe weather alert continues. We had quite a bit of flooding last week. This week will be hot. Tomorrow, which will be May the 13th, is supposed to be the hottest day so far this summer, with Wednesday being May the 14th, close to 100 degrees.
Just crazy for us, for the middle of May to be 100 degrees. We get plenty of 100-degree days here in Texas, but that's early.
That's early. Trade tensions ease. We talked about that in depth pretty much earlier. The Rangers had a big victory over the week with the sweep of the Detroit Lions.
2-1
Detroit Tigers, sorry.
2-1 against the Tigers.
Yeah. International, in Sri Lanka, there was a bus crash. A passenger bus fell off a cliff in Sri Lanka's hill country, killing 8 and injuring over 30. If you don't know much about Sri Lanka and their buses, go look it up on YouTube. It's pretty interesting. The Middle East violence. This is on May the 11th. The Israelis struck in Gaza, killed 4, including 2 children, amid ongoing conflict. The fragile ceasefire, among other regional actions, were noted. That's from the Business Standard. National-wise, a Texas judge blocked a credit card fee ruling. Is blocked. Federal court capping the credit card late fees and interest rates. That was blocked this week. Immigration enforcement expansion. The White House announces plans to expand their 2287G program, allowing local and state official officers to enforce certain immigration duties amid high court backlog. Poor Target. They cannot catch a break. During all the woke stuff, they went a little too far left, and now they're trying to go a little too far right. There's a call for banned. They followed similar moves from companies like Walmart, Amazon, and other large corporations rolling back DEI. I don't know how that's going to play out too well for Target. We'll see. That was earlier this week. It was a relatively slow week as far as national, international news because of obviously we talked quite a bit about that. So that's this week in Smoke Signals.
Yep. We didn't talk about what we smoked. I'm smoking tonight a La Roma de Cuba, just the Robusto. No specifics on that. What did you have?
The Monte Cristo Classic.
Monte Cristo Classic.
Appreciate that for that one. It was my birthday. You gave that to me.
This is my prediction. Stars are going to win tomorrow. They're going to drop the next one in Winnipeg, and they're going to win at home in 6.
I concur. I think the Rangers are on the upswing. The new pitching, our hitting coach seems to have at least had a good conversation with our hitters. Hopefully that carries on.
Yep. Sounds good.
Big week in our house. Big week.
Yeah.
I'll report back, but I haven't cried yet. Daughter graduating. I thought maybe what happened today, we had an athletic banquet. I thought maybe I'd get a little teary-eyed, but I'm happy for her though. It's a weird phase.
I'm 1 year behind you. I cried this week because I got the email to make appointments for senior portraits.
Yeah.
They do that over the summer now.
I got misty-eyed when I was, because, being a teacher and a coach, you kind of get some privileges that other coaches don't get or other parents don't get. So I was able to be there when they were taking those photos. So that was,
wow.
It's been, I'm I don't know. I'm really excited. I think this is how I'm approaching this, and it's a little different than some parents. But like, I'm so excited for her next phase. And we still have 2 littles at home, so that helps keep our minds a little entangled. But I think when next Thursday rolls around, that's graduation.
Oh.
So it's been real hustle and bustle, and that's kind of the pinnacle of it.
Right.
And we've been staying real busy, but that's kind of the end of it. So I'm hoping, it hasn't been approved yet, but I'm hoping to have something special happen, but we'll see. There's still some different things happening, but we'll see.
Good luck there.
So have a good week, man.
Have a good week.